phone is the way we come out, it's a little off balance. So I was like, let me try to give him a call, get it done early.
75 years. That's how long Harlem rapper Max B was sentenced to serve, on 75 years behind bars for a botched robbery that spiraled into kidnapping and murder. It was a headline that shook hip-hop, a reminder that even fame can't outrun fate. But here's the twist. Max B isn't the only artist whose dreams were buried under concrete walls and steel gates. From street legends to chart-topping stars, these are 15 rappers with the longest prison sentences. Let's kick off with number 1, the rapper we just mentioned, Max B, born Charlie Wingate, a Harlem icon whose laid-back wave sound inspired an entire generation. In 2009, the rapper who once embodied smooth confidence faced a staggering 75-year sentence for a botched robbery and kidnapping plot that ended in murder. Prosecutors said Max orchestrated the crime from afar, sending his ex-girlfriend and her stepbrother to rob 2 men at a Holiday Inn in Fort Lee, New Jersey. The plan spiraled out of control. One man was another escaped, and the trail led straight back to Max B. In court, he maintained his innocence, insisting he'd been framed. But the jury saw things differently, convicting him on multiple counts including armed robbery, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom as he handed down 75 years, effectively a life sentence. While locked up, Max B became a folk hero. Rappers from Kanye West to Wiz Khalifa credited him as the originator of the wave. After years of appeals, his sentence was reduced to aggravated manslaughter, drastically shortening his term. Still, the image of Harlem's smooth talker being led away in cuffs remains one of hip-hop's darkest moments. Moving to number 2, Tay-K, born Tamor McIntyre, turned teenage rebellion into a viral tragedy that shocked the nation. At just 16 years old, he recorded The Race, a song bragging about running from the law, while literally fleeing police. The video blew up on YouTube, racking up millions of views, but few realized it described an act of. Tay-K was involved in a 2016 home invasion in Tarrant County, Texas, that left 21-year-old Ethan Walker. While awaiting trial under house arrest, he cut off his ankle monitor and fled the state. During his escape, he was linked to another, the 2017 murder of photographer Mark Saldivar. His actions turned him from a rising rapper into a national headline. In court, prosecutors used his own lyrics as evidence, arguing that his music glorified the very crimes he was accused of. In 2019, Tay-K was sentenced to 55 years for Walker's and 25 more for Saldivar's, totaling roughly 80 years behind bars. Today, in his mid-20s, he remains incarcerated, still insisting he was misunderstood. His story became a chilling parable of how fame, recklessness, and social media can turn a young star's dream into a lifelong sentence. At number 3, we have A.R.Ab, real name Abdul West, once hailed as Philadelphia's rawest street poet, but ultimately judged as its kingpin. Known for his unfiltered lyrics and fearless energy, A.R.Ab built a loyal following long before mainstream recognition. His label, Original Block Hustlers, became a movement that blended music, loyalty, and survival. But to federal investigators, it was something darker. In 2019, prosecutors accused him of running a large-scale trafficking network through North Philadelphia, distributing and under the cover of his music label. They claimed his lyrics weren't storytelling, they were confessionals. In 2021, a federal judge sentenced him to 45 years in prison, calling it a life wasted on the wrong dreams. During the trial, prosecutors even played his own songs in court, pointing to lyrics where he bragged about getting rich off the corner. A.R.Ab remained defiant, saying, "We don't rap about flowers and rainbows, we rap about survival." His case reignited debate about whether rap lyrics should be treated as art or evidence. To his fans, he was punished for expression. To the system, he was proof that words can become weapons when the streets and the studio collide. Coming in at number 4 is C. Murder, real name Corey Miller, the younger brother of Master P and one of the most powerful voices in No Limit Records. In the late 1990s, C. Murder helped define New Orleans street sound, blending raw emotion with truth-telling. But in January 2002, tragedy struck when 16-year-old Steve Thomas was shot and during a fight at a nightclub in Harvey, Louisiana. Witnesses pointed the finger at C. Murder. He was convicted of second-degree murder in 2003 and sentenced to life in prison, a verdict that remains one of hip-hop's most debated. Years later, both key witnesses recanted, saying they were pressured by police to lie. No DNA, and no footage ever tied him directly to the crime. Still, Louisiana's courts refused to reopen his case. From behind bars, C. Murder has continued to record music and maintain his innocence. His family, along with Monica and Kim Kardashian, have fought for his freedom. 2 decades later, his story has come to symbolize injustice, perseverance, and the haunting question, what if one of hip-hop's most loyal soldiers was truly innocent all along? At number 5, we enter one of hip-hop's darkest and most disturbing chapters, Big Lurch, born Antron Singleton. Once a rising West Coast artist known for his booming voice and intense style, Singleton's career spiraled into horror in April 2002. Under the influence of PCP, he brutally murdered his 21-year-old roommate, Tynesha E. Sias, in Los Angeles. When police arrived, they found him naked, covered in, gazing up at the sky in a psychotic state. The autopsy revealed a chilling detail. Human flesh was found in his stomach. His defense argued insanity, claiming he was under the effects of but the court ruled that voluntary intoxication couldn't excuse such violence. In 2003, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The case horrified the nation and even led to lawsuits against his record label, which some accused of exploiting his instability to promote a real gangsta image. Whether or not those claims were true, Big Lurch's downfall became a symbol of how drugs and mental illness can destroy promise beyond repair. A grim reminder that not every rap story ends in redemption. Now at number 6, we have BG, born Christopher Dorsey, the raspy-voiced New Orleans rapper who helped shape the golden era of Cash Money Records. Alongside Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and Turk, he helped create classics like Bling Bling and Cash Money is an Army. But while his music glorified the hustle, the streets never let go of him. In 2012, BG was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison for gun possession and obstruction of justice after police discovered multiple firearms in his car. Prosecutors revealed he tried to persuade an associate to take the blame, a move that sealed his fate. The judge called it a tragedy for New Orleans, lamenting that someone so influential had been pulled back into the cycle he once escaped. Behind bars, BG remained steadfast, writing letters and mentoring inmates while fans kept his name alive. When he finally walked free in 2023, the city celebrated as though a legend had returned home. His release wasn't just freedom, it was resurrection. BG's comeback symbolized that even after a decade behind bars, talent and redemption can still rewrite a fallen legacy. At number 7 stands Flesh and Bone, real name Stanley Howes, 1/5 of the Grammy-winning group Bone Thugs and Harmony. In the late 1990s, their melodic, fast-paced flow redefined hip-hop, blending harmony with hardship. But behind the fame, Flesh carried deep trauma, scars from years of childhood abuse and surviving Cleveland's rough East Side. That pain often surfaced through anger and leading to a string of legal troubles that overshadowed his talent. In 2000, he was sentenced to 12 years in state prison for assault with an AK-47 and possession of a firearm by a felon. The judge called his upbringing one of the most horrific she had ever read, acknowledging his suffering but insisting the cycle had to end. Behind bars, Flesh confronted his demons. He turned to faith, studied scripture, and wrote countless letters to his Bone Thugs brothers, reflecting on forgiveness and fate. When he finally walked free in 2008, the group reunited, performing songs that felt like healing hymns. His return wasn't just about music, it was about redemption. Flesh and Bone proved that even after 12 long years, a man broken by could still rebuild his soul through harmony. At number 8, Turk, born Tab Virgil Jr., experienced fame, fall, and faith like few others. As one of the original Hot Boys, alongside Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and BG, he helped define the early sound of Cash Money Records. But by 2004, the spotlight dimmed, and addiction began consuming him. That October, Memphis police raided his apartment during a drug investigation. Gunfire erupted, wounding 2 SWAT officers. Prosecutors alleged Turk fired the shots while hiding in a closet. He claimed panic and confusion. Convicted on federal weapons and assault charges, Turk was sentenced to up to 12 years in prison and served nearly a decade. The time broke him, but it also rebuilt him. Behind bars, he battled withdrawal and depression, eventually finding solace in religion and reflection. Released in 2012, Turk emerged a changed man. He began speaking about mental health, addiction, and redemption, warning young artists not to mistake fame for freedom. His story became one of rebirth, not revenge. Turk's greatest comeback wasn't on stage, but within himself, proving that peace, not popularity, is the truest form of success. At number 9, Bump J, born Terrence Boykin, was Chicago's next big thing before it all went wrong. Signed to Atlantic Records in the early 2000s and backed by Kanye West, he seemed destined for stardom. His single, Move Around, had the city behind him, until 2007, when he made a fateful mistake. Bump and an accomplice robbed a Chase Bank in Oak Park, Illinois, escaping with over $100,000. Caught a year later, he pleaded guilty to armed robbery and weapon charges and was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Prison, he later said, became his college of discipline. He worked out daily, read obsessively, and wrote bars about regret and growth. When he returned home in 2015, Chicago's rap landscape had changed. The drill movement now ruled, but younger artists like Lil Durk and G Herbo credited Bump as their inspiration, the man who made street rap credible. His comeback wasn't flashy, it was focused. Bump J turned his decade of confinement into wisdom, proving that time served doesn't have to mean potential lost. At number 10, Shine, born Moses Michael Levi Barrow, was once hailed as Bad Boy Records' future. In 1999, he stood beside Diddy and Jennifer Lopez when gunfire erupted at Club New York, leaving 3 people wounded. At just 18 years old, Shine was charged with assault and weapons offenses while Diddy walked free. In 2001, Shine was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The conviction devastated his career and fractured his relationship with Diddy forever. Years later, he told reporters, "He destroyed my life." But instead of letting prison define him, Shine reinvented himself. He converted to Judaism, studied philosophy, and began writing from a place of purpose. After his release, Shine was deported to Belize, where he charted an extraordinary new path, entering politics and eventually becoming the leader of the opposition in parliament. His transformation from inmate to statesman became one of hip-hop's most remarkable turnarounds. Shine didn't just survive incarceration, he transcended it, turning betrayal into belief and proving that some men rise higher after they've fallen the hardest. Sliding in at number 11, Bobby Shmurda, born Aquile Pollard, went from internet sensation to cautionary tale in record time. In 2014, his breakout single Hot and the viral Shmoney dance catapulted him into fame. But fame came as law enforcement closed in on the GS9 crew, accusing them of racketeering, weapons possession, and conspiracy tied to multiple shootings in Brooklyn. Facing 25 years in prison, Bobby shocked fans by accepting a 7-year plea deal, not just to shorten his sentence, but to reduce rowdy rebels as well. It was a rare act of loyalty in an industry often fueled by betrayal. He served about 6 years, much of it in solitary confinement, before being released in February 2021. Rapper Quavo from Migos personally picked him up, and the internet exploded with celebration. His first words weren't about fame. They were about freedom, family, and faith. Bobby's story became hip-hop's modern parable of loyalty and perseverance. He entered prison, a viral sensation, and left a symbol of endurance, proof that true integrity shines brightest when the spotlight fades. At number 12, Rowdy Rebel, born Chad Marshall, faced the same storm that swallowed his brother-in-arms, Bobby Shmurda. Arrested in 2014 as part of the GS9 indictment, Rowdy was accused of racketeering, weapons possession, and gang activity connected to multiple shootings across Brooklyn. Prosecutors painted GS9 not as a rap collective, but as a criminal organization that used music to mask real. The evidence was stacked: phone taps, ballistics, and surveillance, all tying the group to street-level crime. Rowdy received a 12-year sentence, but in an act of solidarity, Bobby accepted a matching plea deal to reduce his time. While locked up, Rowdy refused to fade. He recorded verses through prison phones that leaked online, keeping GS9's spirit alive. When he finally walked free in December 2020, his first words were, "We stayed solid." Months later, his reunion with Bobby on stage became more than a performance. It was a testament to loyalty, a brotherhood that prison couldn't break. In an era where betrayal had become routine in rap, Rowdy Rebel reminded the world that honor still exists, even behind concrete walls and steel doors. Moving on to number 13, Kodak Black, born Bill Capri, embodies contradiction, a gifted lyricist and a magnet for chaos. In 2019, He was sentenced to 46 months in federal prison after admitting to lying on gun purchase forms. Prosecutors discovered one of the weapons was later used in a shooting near Pompano Beach, prompting the judge to call him a danger to the community. Kodak's fame couldn't shield him from consequence. While serving time, he claimed abuse by prison guards and solitary confinement, posting letters through his team that exposed his mental toll. Then, in a headline-shocking twist, President Donald Trump commuted Kodak's sentence in January 2021, citing his donations to charity and scholarship funds. The decision sparked fierce debate. Some saw it as mercy, others as privilege. Since his release, Kodak has teetered between redemption and relapse, dropping hits, facing new arrests, and promising change. He once said, "I learned who's real when I lost my freedom." His short sentence may have ended on paper, but his struggle for stability continues, a reflection of how fame magnifies both greatness and self-destruction. Now, at number 14, Tekashi 6ix9ine, real name Daniel Hernandez, remains one of the most polarizing figures in hip-hop history. His rainbow-colored image and shock value persona made him a viral sensation, but his need for validation led him down a deadly path. Seeking credibility, Tekashi joined the 9 Trey Gangsta, a Brooklyn gang known for extortion and by 2018, federal agents had gathered enough evidence to charge him with racketeering, firearms offenses, and conspiracy, crimes carrying a minimum of 37 years. Facing decades behind bars, Tekashi chose survival over silence, cooperating with federal prosecutors and testifying against his former crew. His decision resulted in convictions for multiple gang leaders and earned him a 2-year sentence, most of which he had already served. When released in 2020, public reaction split in half. Half praised his pragmatism, half condemned his betrayal. In hip-hop, where loyalty is sacred, Tekashi's actions sparked endless debate. His story blurred the line between bravery and cowardice, survival and dishonor. Today, he lives as both an outcast and an icon, proof that fame can buy exposure, but never forgiveness. His name became shorthand for the cost of turning witness in a culture built on loyalty. And finally, closing our list at number 15, Pimp C, born Chad Butler, one half of the legendary Southern duo UGK, represents the soul of Texas hip-hop. In 2002, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison for violating probation from a 2000 aggravated assault case after allegedly threatening a woman with a gun at a mall. When he was locked away, the South united. A wave of artists, T.I., Lil Flip, 3 6 Mafia, and Bun B, ignited the now iconic Free Pimp C movement, plastering the message across mixtapes, shirts, and songs. Behind bars, Pimp C stayed creative, writing rhymes and sending letters to Bun B, who kept UGK alive as a solo act. Their brotherhood became symbolic of unity in Southern rap, a testament to staying real even when the system shuts you down. When Pimp C walked free in 2005, UGK roared back to life, topping charts with International Players' Anthem. Tragically, 2 years later, he passed away from complications tied to sleep apnea. Yet his impact never faded. His voice, raw, rebellious, and poetic, still echoes through hip-hop's veins. Pimp C's time behind bars didn't end his legacy, it only made it legendary. From Tekashi's 2-year cooperation deal to Max B's 75-year mountain, these stories reveal how thin the line between art and downfall can be. Each rapper walked into court with fame and walked out with time. Some changed, some never will. But every one of them reminds us that in the world of hip-hop, the bars aren't always on stage. Sometimes they're made of steel. And that's the untold truth behind the 15 rappers with the longest prison sentences.